Excerpts from The Lilies of the Field by St. Paisios, Velichkovsky. Pay heed to yourself, sensibly and diligently, with a vigilant mind, as to when the demons come, by what means they catch one, and by what means they themselves are vanquished. Guard yourself with great caution, because every hour you walk in the midst of passions and nets. Everywhere the passions surround one, everywhere are set out their traps. Pay heed lest you be attracted by the enemy into his will through passions and traps. There is a great need for us men of flesh to fight with the fleshless ones. One man with 10,000 enemies. Many tears, much patience, much suffering and caution, and 1,000 eyes everywhere are required, for the evil spirits rise up maliciously against us like a lion. They would destroy us if we did not have the Lord with us. They have been very skilled in the art of catching men for more than 7,000 years, without sleep, food, and rest, constantly, every hour, and by all means, they seek our perdition with every trick and with great effort. Having turned out to be powerless in one way, they think up something else. They start one thing and contemplate yet another, and they roar about everywhere, looking where they might find doors to enter, and from where they might begin the battle, and as it were, trick us into doing evil. Do you not know with whom you battle? How legions of invisible enemies surround you, and every one of them wages his own battle? They sound numberless voices and desire to swallow up your soul. Should you not be cautious? Is it possible that, having drunk your fill and given yourself over to sleep, lying down and constantly consoling yourself, that you can with all this receive salvation? If you will not be attentive to this, you will not escape their traps. We have come to struggle, as it were, stepping into the fire. If we desire to be true warriors of the King of Heaven, and not false participants, then let us put far away from us every passion or other, and according to our desire and fervor they tighten their traps, for the occasion to sin belongs to us ourselves, our attachment, weakness, and let us put away from ourselves every negligence and faint-heartedness and effeminate weakness, and thus we shall stand against the cunningness of the demons. Let us labor in prayer and other virtues with all fervor and power, with soul, heart, and mind, just as someone might run swiftly on a road without looking around, or as a stingy man might fast, for such is the cunningness of the evil demons. They are constantly occupied with us. Like watchmen, they notice our inclinations and desires, what we are thinking about and what we love, what we are occupied with besides these. Whatever passion they notice in us, they arouse this in us, and thus they place their nets for us. In this way, we ourselves first of all arouse against ourselves every passion, being ourselves the cause of it. Therefore, the demon seeks in us occasion that through our own inclination and desire we might the sooner be caught. They do not compel us to do what we do not desire, to do that from which our mind inclines away and our will does not agree, knowing that we will not obey them. Rather, they test us whether we will accept some passion or other, and according to our desire or fervor, they tighten their traps, for the occasion to sin belongs to us ourselves, our attachment, weakness, and negligence. We do not out of the beginning of every passion, but the final cause of every end is the demons. Through the demons we fall into every sin, and no kind of evil comes to us apart from them. Thus the demons cast us into every passion. They compel us to fall to every sin, and we are tangled in every net. By nets I mean the first thought of desires and various foul thoughts through which we bind ourselves with every passion and fall into every sin. This is the door of demons and passions by which they enter into us and rob our spiritual treasury. Immoderate sleep, laziness, eating not at the proper time are a cause of the entrance of demons. And having come, they first of all knock on the doors of the heart secretly like thieves. They introduce a thought, and they notice whether there is a watchman or not. If it will be received, then they begin to cause passion and arouse us to it, and they steal our spiritual treasure. If they find a watchman at the door of the heart who is accustomed to battle and banish their suggestions, if one turns away in mind from the first mental impulse and has one's mind deaf and dumb to their barking and directed towards the depths of the heart, and so does not at all agree with them, then to such a one they cannot do any evil, since his mind is sober. Then they begin to scheme and place various nets to catch us in passion. For example, forgetfulness, anger, foolishness, self-love, pride, love of glory, love of pleasure, overeating, gluttony, fornication, unmercifulness, remembrance of wrongs, blasphemy, sorrow, brazenness, vainglory, much speaking, despondency, fearfulness, sleep, laziness, heaviness, fright, jealousy, envy, hatred, hypocrisy, deception, murmuring, unbelief, disobedience, covetousness, love of things, egotism, faint-heartedness, duplicity, bitterness, ambition, and laughter. Then they arouse a great storm of thoughts of fornication and blasphemy, so that the ascetic might become frightened and despondent, or so that he might leave off his struggle in prayer. But if the enemies, after raising all this, cannot hold and take away from his struggle a firm soul and an unwavering soldier of Christ, who, like a passion-bearer, has placed his foundation on the rock of faith, so that the rivers of sorrows do not cause him to waver, then they try to rob him by some seeming good, considering it more convenient, under the appearance of good, to introduce something of their own, and in this way to deprive one of perfect virtue and struggle. Thus they try to compel us to make spiritual conversations for the sake of love, to teach men or to sweeten the food a little for the sake of a friend, or for the feast, for they know the deceptive ones, that Adam fell for the love of sweet things. First, they begin to darken the purity of the mind, and heedfulness to oneself, and by this path suddenly throw us into the pit of sexual sins, or into some other passion. If even by this way they do not cause one to waver who is sober in mind, then they arm themselves with false visions, and offend and disturb him with various afflictions. A most skilled warrior lets all this go by him, and regards it as nothing, as if it has no relation to him, for he knows that all this is a device of the devil. If even thus they do not conquer, then they battle by means of high-mindedness. They introduce the thought that the man is holy, saying to him secretly, "How many afflictions you have endured!" The demons, like a clever hunter, when their first means turns in to be powerless, abandon it, go away, hide themselves, and pretend to be conquered. But beware, O man, take heed, do not be lax, for they will not depart from you until the grave, but they will prepare a great siege, and will look attentively by what means they can again begin to rise up against you, for they do not rest. When the warmth of fervor grows cold in a struggler, they then secretly, having prepared some net, come again and lay them out and try to catch him. In all the paths of virtue the devils establish their nets and hindrances when we fulfill heedfully every deed for our salvation, and not one of pleasing men or from some other idea. But if in virtue there is hidden some kind of impurity, pride, vainglory, and high-mindedness, then in such a matter the devils do not hinder us, but they even inspire us, so that we might labor without benefit. The demons strive for nothing as much as by every crafty means to steal time and make it idle. In everything that the demons do, they strive to dig 3 pits for us. First of all, they act against us and strive to hinder us, so that there will be no good in all our acts of virtue. In the second place, they strive so that the good will not be for the sake of God, that is, having no opportunity to bring us away from good, they make efforts through vainglory to destroy all our labors. In the third place, they praise us as if we turn out everything to be God-pleasing, that is, being unable to confuse us by vainglory, they strive by high-mindedness to destroy our labors and deprive us of rewards. Every demonic battle against us is in 3 forms. First, the devils darken our mind, and a man becomes forgetful and dispersed in all his works. Then they introduce an idle thought, so that through it we might lose time. Finally, they bring various temptations and afflictions. Therefore, of us it is demanded that at all times we should be very sober of mind, for the enemies ceaselessly are making tricks and acting against us. If one struggles for many years, the enemy seeks a convenient time, so as in a simple hour to destroy all his labors. Not many men see the numberless traps, devices, and tricks of the demons, As a fleshless spirit, the demon does not require rest, and through a long life he has learned to catch men. Therefore no one can escape the tricks, the ruinous nets and pitfalls of them, except one who remains in bodily infirmity from constant struggle, and who lives in spiritual poverty, that is, with a contrite heart and humble thoughts. Such a one will conquer them. Most of all, the divine help cooperates with us. However, in us, as we have said previously, is the beginning of all passions, attachment, weakness, and negligence, because we do not renounce in soul and thought, and do not cut off the first impulse of every passion that comes, and the demons add yet more. Seek within yourself the reason for every passion, and finding it, arm yourself and dig out its root with the sword of suffering. And if you do not uproot it, again it will push out sprouts and grow. Without this means you cannot conquer passions, come to purity, and be saved. Therefore, if we desire to be saved, we must cut off the first impulse of the thought and desire of every passion. Conquer small things so as not to fall into big ones. It is evident that God allows one to be overthrown in battle by the demons on some stubborn passion because of our pride or high-mindedness, or when one considers oneself to be holy or strong and trusts in himself and exalts himself above those who are weak. Let such a one acknowledge his own infirmity, acknowledge the help of God, and be enlightened. Let him understand that without God's help he can do nothing, and thus he will humble his thought. Or again, this is allowed as a chastisement for sins, so that we might repent and be more experienced in struggle. Or it is allowed for the sake of crowns of victory. However, in that in which you are conquered, and from which you suffer before all other passions, you must arm yourself against it, and for this use all your fervor. Every passion and suffering is conquered by undoubting faith, by labor of heart and tears, by warm fervor and quick striving to oppose the present passion. This is a high and praiseworthy struggle, as taught by the Holy Fathers. Every warfare of the demons against us comes from and is reinforced by 4 causes: from negligence and laziness, from self-love, from love of pleasure, and from the envy of the demons. May the Lord preserve us by his grace from all nets of the enemy and passionate works unto the ages of ages. Amen.